Oh, man. A little late to the party. I do apologize, gentlemen and ladies. Ooh. Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of High Top Sports. Happy to see you on this beautiful Monday evening. It's been a little bit since we've been live, and I do apologize. Been working on a few things. We're working on a website rolling out, working on some new gear to come out. We are really excited about where things are headed, and some of that time is being taken away and working on growing and building that, so I do apologize. But we did post a little banger yesterday, a little fun little video using AI to talk about what is the future of the Florida Gators. Some people enjoyed it. Some people were just, I don't know if they're watching the same video or not with some of the comments that are left. It's like, did we watch the same thing, or did you watch something else and then come and comment on this? I don't know. It's a blast. The comment section will make you go crazy if you can get too caught up into, well, we got a lot to talk about today, boys and girls, on this Monday afternoon. Recruiting has gone into its dead period from its quiet period. We'll talk about the difference between those two periods here in just a minute. Pause. There is some interesting news that just dropped by Pete Nakos from On3 about students becoming employees. And we also dropped a video about that on Friday, about Big Ten and the SEC and what that could mean for the future of college football. A lot of you commented on that, had your thoughts and opinion. Appreciate your feedback on that. And then we're going to talk about SEC power rankings. Josh Pate, who I respect dearly, dropped his power rankings. And look, most of it's solid. And this is what lists do. They fire you up. They get you rowdy. They are simply there to just, I think, provoke anger. That's it. Lists, they irritate me. We've created a list on this show before. We have posted our own list. I think they're fun, but sometimes they just irritate me because it's like, how did we get to this point? We're going to talk all about it. I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to talk all about it. But 100 people in here, 120 people in here. Happy to have all of you here. Ronnie B, K Ziegler, what's going on, man? Werewolf, Q352, my boy. Been trying to get in touch. Hope huge fan. Would love to have you on the podcast deep in the swamp. Shoot us an email on hightopsports2@gmail. Q352. Ben Simmons. Travis, what's up, boys? Garrett Bula, what's going on? Nick Myers. I don't know what happened to your pay, bud. Got to pay the bill, baby. JJ Koch. LFGO, what's going on? LFG, what's up? Andrew Apple, what's going on, man? How are you? Patrick. Oza. Big Gooch. Timothy Packard. Garrett Berg. Taking it, George again. Billy B. Good to see all of you beautiful boys. Welcome to the show. Be sure to smash the like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's dive into it. First order of business. We got ourselves a little crystal ball today, and Peyton Joseph, inside offensive lineman here, 4-star. I think he's like top 5 inside offensive lineman for 2024. Excuse me. Hey, pardon my French there. 2025. We have moved on from 2024. And look, we're in that weird period. Like I said, we're headed into the quiet or the dead period. So a lot right now, a lot of the foundation is being laid. This past few weeks, we had another junior weekend. A lot of visits were there. A lot of quarterbacks were visiting, some wide receivers. And I do want to talk about that and my thoughts on how this recruiting cycle is going to go. In my opinion, I believe Billy is going to try to establish the same type of recruiting as he did last year. But obviously, we know that there's a timeline to this year on whether or not Billy is going to have a job at the end of it. So we've always kind of brushed off that the production on the field doesn't really necessarily always have an impact on the class. This year, in my opinion, is it's going to determine the recruiting class, given because whether or not Billy keeps his job. I think if he's close and he's just over the edge, we'll see how that holds the recruiting class. If we're able to really turn things around, I think we could really see us move in on some big time recruits. So we'll see. But inside offensive lineman again, Peyton Joseph. It has been crystal balled. He is set to announce on the 18th. I think it's a Tuesday. Depending on what time it is, we'll try to go live for that commitment. We always like to do those watch parties. Those always are a great time to hop on and do those. But there is somebody I do want to talk about, and that is a wide receiver here in Caleb Cunningham. So he was just here this past weekend, 5-star wide receiver. And this is an article by Keith Naber on 3. He obviously was talking to him a little bit. He was giving his feel and his thoughts. He lives in, I think, Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check before I continue on with that. I think he lives in Mississippi. Yeah, Mississippi. And he doesn't want to go outside of the 10-hour drive mark for himself right now. And right now, Gainesville's like 9 hours and 27 minutes away. So it's like right on the cusp there. He's projected to go to Mississippi State currently, and we know they've got Levy there from Oklahoma at Mississippi State as their new head coach. Very high offensive mind headed that way. So this is where I kind of want to get into, because Keith Napier believes that, look, I don't think he's going to veer far off from home. And this is a top wide receiver, 5-star wide receiver. Let me get exactly what his rankings are real quick. And again, it reminds me, the number 2 wide receiver, right behind the kid that committed to LSU currently. 6'3", 185. I mean, this guy is right where we want. This is what we talk about all the time, the big target on the outside. And it feels like we don't have a chance already, right? It's January, and he has his prerogative, which is to stay close to home. And I felt like we put a lot of energy into Jeremiah Smith last year. And it felt like there was always a flirting chance, but when it really came down to it, we never really had a chance. And I guess that's recruiting. You can't ever give up on it. But did we maybe turn away from somebody, right? Like a TJ Moore at Clemson. I felt like we really turned things off with TJ Moore when it felt like we had a really good opportunity there. And we saw what he did. I mean, he skyrocketed in the recruiting rankings. So I would like to see how we manage that this year, this recruiting cycle. Is like, look, if there's a guy that just feels like we are putting a lot of time and effort, I think always recruiting, always having a good relationship is important due to the transfer portal. You never know what's going to happen the following year. But if your reason for not going to Gainesville is simply due to distance, that's going to be a tough one to overcome. You can't just pick up Gainesville and move. So wide receivers, again, in general, are going to be an interesting one. I feel like we're excited about the talent that is coming in for this recruiting class for the wide receivers. I think we know there is some talent, obviously, what Eugene was able to bring to the table. But I think we can also, like, why can't we land the big one? We would love a big splash in the wide receiver room. But again, I also think that with wide receivers or running backs, it's just like the draft. There's maybe 1, 2, 3 outbreak stars that are going to come in and have impact right away. But from 5 down, it's a crapshoot. And so maybe that's what it is, right? It's like, hey, it's either we're getting this guy, if not the 26th guy, it's not much of a difference from number 7. And that's probably what it is. So I guess the big question is, can both Billies close in on a guy like Caleb Cunningham, who I would believe would be one of those, like an Evan Stewart, just comes in right away and smashes. I mean, Eugene Wilson came in right away and smashed, and he wasn't, he was a 4-star wide receiver. I think he ended up just getting his 5th star, depending on what recruiter cycle you looked at. But all in all, it'll be interesting to see. So we moved into the dead period now until, I think, March 4th. So it's about a month of a dead period. For what that means for anybody who doesn't know, we were in the quiet period just now. So the quiet period means they can come visit us, which is what was happening. Hang out with them. They can chit-chat, text, etc. We can't go see them. Me and the coaches can't go visit. Obviously, there's a lot of visiting going on in late December, and then the quiet period hit, and so now they're able to have kids on campus, but they couldn't go see them. Now that it's dead, nobody can see anybody. All they can do is text, email. I don't even know if they can FaceTime. I don't know how that plays into the factor. I imagine that's probably the same thing as texting and calling. I just thought of that thought by Dome here. So that's where we're at for the next month. How I look at it is probably the staff is like, thank God. some time to rest. Some time to gear up. Hey, coach, I'm going to go put my feet up. I'm going to shoot some texts. I'm going to go play 18 on Friday, and I'll be hitting up the 5 stars, right? Rob Sale's like, what, you guys been working all week? Business as usual here, boys. I will say he was the leading recruiter for Peyton Joseph. So, hey, come on, Rob. All right? Give him credit where credit's due. You know what I mean? So that is something to kind of keep in mind there with this dead period. And then we'll be back into a quiet period right after that. And then there's, we'll see it kind of turn off and on. We don't really notice these things. Again, that just depends on who's going where. I would say the dead period is probably the most intense one because nobody's visiting anybody. Nobody can talk to anybody. We'll probably get a ton of information from On3 because I imagine, I don't know what rules they have to follow, but this is probably where they're going to be able to get into these kids' ears more than before because they're not traveling as much. Now, the On3 staff that is on campus, Rob, right, they're going to have a little bit harder time, but these kids are probably more likely to respond to certain texts and emails and interviews given the fact that they're not being bombarded or traveling from school to school every other weekend. So it's a dead period for coaches, probably not much of a dead period from us on gathering information on how all these visits went from all of these schools and how these things all played out. So we'll see. And again, we made our big moves in June, and that's what I'm going to be, an interesting one to tell. The next quiet period, again, it's going to be in March, which is when spring practice starts, which I think is going to be, it's a very important time anyways, because you're able to see practice, you're able to see what's happening. But for us, it's going to be, in my opinion, outside of us playing games, the biggest factor in recruiting because of the changes that we've made in this offseason. So every kid coming in is going to know, okay, they turned around their strength and conditioning coach. And these 2025 kids, they were there last year. A lot of them were probably visiting, just like we have 2026 kids. They were there. So it'll be interesting to see kids that we've been, heavily recruiting, if they saw the production, if they were there for some of these camps last year. I don't know if they're able to visit they can visit. If they see these things and are able to see a massive change, that's going to be an interesting one to tell. I'm waiting for the day if a kid commits and he goes, the reason what got me fired up is I've always loved Florida. I had a few question marks. The questions were X, Y, and Z in regards to, hey, this particular, what if it's a defensive lineman? Hey, I had some question marks here, but it seems that Chapman and the new staff have turned those things around. And also the training facility and the coach and the strength and conditioning, those things have made a complete 180 that really excite me about the program. Like I said, I was always there, but I had my reserves. They've been answered. I don't know if a recruit's going to come out and say those things, but man, could you imagine, right? I mean, you have to think that those are question marks. Kids were leaving because of those things. So we'll see. That's going to be the closest thing that we get until obviously we see production on the football field. So that March recruiting cycle is going to be huge. And then, of course, all the writers from On 3 and all these guys are going to be invited to these practices. They also saw the same thing last year. So it's going to be great to see their input. So we've got about less than 30 days, boys, that we're going to have to just kind of bite the bullet and hang out and enjoy each other's company until we can make it until springtime and we're getting spring notes. I genuinely cannot wait for those. I almost love that more sometimes in the football games because you're just kind of talking about it of what could be. It's talking season, right? So it's a whole other animal for sure. But look, all in all, good weekend for the boys. Let me see the chat here for just a quick second. And then we're going to move into this big time news in regards to students becoming employees. Q352, do you think Billy G is capable of bringing in 5-star wide receivers? He has never been known for his coaching. We need him to be an ace recruiter. I mean, his resume speaks pretty volumes. Again, what he did back at the Urban era. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know if he's gonna be able to pull one in or not. He seems to kind of fit in that Coyer Raymond category in the sense of recruiting from how it feels. Let's see. Adrian says strength and conditioning is key. There will be a new team. This will be a new team again. That's very true. Pissed about my wings. Why did everybody lose their wings? I didn't do anything. I promise you that. It's going to be a long month, Tugs Gaming. I know. It is a big month. It's a big month. So, look, it's a boring month for us, the fans, because we're getting radio silence, but it's probably the biggest month that you won't feel the impact from this month until later on in the year. And that's going to be on all aspects. Strength and conditioning. Obviously, I mean, I'd assume the coaches take a lot of time to look back on themselves, do some self-reflect. And if there are to be some more coaches brought in, like an OC, getting that coach established, right? That's this month. Because then after that, it's showtime. It's time to buckle up and get ready to rock and roll. So these next 30 days are probably the most important 30 days for Florida football. So all of us have a minute to kind of take in what we've, seen thus far and then get ready to get buck nasty because it's going to be ham over the next few months, obviously. So Andrew Apple's got his wings. I love it. What's good, Sheldon? Hope all is well. All is well, Asbeck. Good to see you too. All right, so let's move on to our next little topic here, which is this news that just broke here from Pete Nakos. Huge stuff here. We talked about on our Friday video about the Big Ten and the SEC bringing this merger together to become one unit. And the reason for it was to help facilitate conversation was what they said. Essentially, it means like, hey, we're going to bring our board of directors together and probably just break off and do our own thing. That was my assumption from when I saw this happening. Because the NCAA, like I said in the video, is essentially just a babysitter. They're like the USGA or the Little League. They manage amateur status players. Well, college football is no longer amateurs. Just not. And everybody in the SEC and the Big Ten is being paid, especially on football. So they're able to now just basically break away. They don't need the NCAA anymore. Well, here is a minor step to that, right? The Big Ten and the SEC breaking away and doing all those things is a massive move. A lot of things would have to happen in a sense to kind of get that ball rolling. This is the first step. Major college sports news. The National Labor Relations Board Regional Director in Region 1, Boston, has issued a decision ruling Dartmouth men's basketball players are employees of Dartmouth. Order of a union election. This is the way. This is the step here. So here's what's interesting about this. What makes this, again, they're kind of already, why it matters, because they're already being paid. So what's the difference between a student and an employee? Well, a student, you have requirements. Think about the quarterbacks that we've missed out on because of not enough credits. Grades weren't good enough. Well, that's not going to matter anymore. All the time that Duke would turn people away or that Florida's turned people away for credits and grades in high school, all that goes by the wayside because now you're hiring an employee. Has nothing to do with what the school is expecting them to do. They don't have to necessarily be. They don't have to go to school there. They can just be employed by the school, right? That's how I envision this. So it's much bigger than you think. And I think the biggest takeaway that I've gotten from this and from the video is it's ruining college sports. They've crushed our sport. They've killed our sport. I'm not going to watch if these things happen. Look, the sport that you know and love died the moment, not died, but it went away the moment the transfer portal and the NIL started. This is just another step to the equation. You could almost argue when it went from the BCS to a 14 playoff that there was a part of college football that died because that was a change in college football. The difference is that 90% of the fans wanted that change, so we didn't look at it as a negative. This change, student athletes being paid, has been an argument as long as time since it came out the womb. I feel like it's always been an essay that kids wrote about. It was your go-to essay in high school and college to argue whether or not you should be paid. And there was always a 50-50 battle, and obviously now here we are. So it's not really a conversation because it's the way it's headed, whether you like it or not. And everyone say, I'm not going to watch. Well, what are you going to watch? You know what I mean? You say you're not going to watch. If they cared about the losing viewership, I don't think they would even move in this direction. But I believe viewership was at an all-time high this past year. So, look, I know people are frustrated. It's just the way that it's headed. So it is what it is at this point. Like, don't get mad at me. We're just reporting the news over here. So don't scream at me. But it is very interesting to see this happening and Dartmouth making that first move there. Man, hey, kudos to those guys for hiring their employees. So let's see here. This is literally this is the path to college football literally being minor leagues. And that's exactly it, right? That's exactly what we talked about in our video on Friday. That is becoming the minor league of the NFL. And it's crazy. It's weird to comprehend. How is that going to lay out for the rest of the college football? I don't know. SBEC says, I think they will incorporate being an employee with being a student. Otherwise, these guys could be in college for 10 years if they weren't good enough to go to the NFL. That's a good point. So I guess there has to be some type of, again, what's your eligibility, right, to play here. So that is a solid point. There has to still be, I would assume, you have to be involved with the school at some level. Great point. I didn't think of that. I didn't think about that. But again, whatever the league is can still set, an eligibility of how many years you can play here. That's just a rule they can implement to overcome that. It's a very easy one, right? So we still have Friday Night Lights, boys. Maybe look, Friday Night Lights in Texas has always been the mecca, right? The meta. Maybe Friday Night Lights just has a surgence like no other because we're all clinging for what college football once was. Maybe we all end up tailgating on Friday, right? And we work on Saturdays and take off Fridays. Yeah, maybe that's where we go. So eligibility rules gone. Look, that's a great question for them. We just addressed that. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Again, I'd imagine they would have to make some things happen. Collective bargaining by public employees is illegal in some states. What's up, Q Lee? I hope you enjoyed the video yesterday, Q. Appreciate your help on that. Truly need to fix the transfer rule to keep any balance of college athletics. I believe yes. I think the transfer portal is going to be another big one that needs a little bit of tinkering. So there is some commitment. Again, we were comparing it to the NFL, but at least the NFL, there's contracts. Once you sign with a team, there's at least some longevity there, unless you do sign a 1-year deal. But at that point, now you're taking a risk on yourself when you're signing these 1-year deals. And I mean, if that pays off to sign 1-year deals, then so be it. Eventually, I think the schools are going to go shy away from signing those if that is the case. Because again, I'm talking hypothetically here, so we'll see. But this is kind of some major breaking news here with these kids now going to be treated as employees and not students. So we'll watch how this thing unfolds and some of these questions that we have of how, with eligibility, how does this play? A ton of questions. Can you just go pluck somebody off the street now? What if they, because they're employees, age doesn't matter. There's a lot of questions. It can get dicey, very dicey. So we'll see. All right, boys. Last order of business here. We got to talk about SEC power rankings. Like I was saying at the beginning of the show, the SEC power rankings fire me up, and they fire me up. Let me get these comments over here a little bigger. Thank you. They fire me up because it's very easy to just get frustrated with, and I get rowdy with them for some reason. And I want to say this: I put my own little list together, and I look. I know I'm a Gator fan, so if there is anybody that's not a Gator fan, I'm not going to be homerish here. Okay, I have my homerish feelings on certain things, but not from like a fan base. It's just simply like logistically looking at this. Some things don't make sense to me. I could be looking at it completely wrong. I'm sure you will all tell me when I am wrong, which is fine. But I disagree with the middle of this list. And I think Florida, in my opinion, and we'll get into it, I'm not even going to really address Florida, to be honest with you. I'm looking at more from 2 through 10. That's what I'm looking at here. The rest of it, I think 11 through 16, I mean, you could argue with whatever you want. Genuinely. I look, me personally, I'm obviously going to be the pumper on Florida. I could always argue for them to be higher, and I have my reasons, and I'm going to express them here. But I do want to get your thoughts. Leave them in the comments down below on your thoughts of Pate. Obviously, everybody loves Pate. He does a great job of explaining it to where it's hard to even disagree with him because he's very smooth in his words. But I listen to his words, and I'm going to take that into consideration of you say this about one school, but then I think ignore it about another school. And that's where I come into play. So I put my own together, and here's what I came up with. It's all going to come out together. This is what I thought. I don't think there's any other way around it, to be honest with you. It's pretty straightforward, honestly. It's not much to think about. It's pretty easy. So that's I'm just kidding. Some people can be rowdy about that one. All right, let me go ahead and show you what I actually think is going to be. And look, some of this was still hard for me. All right, I think you could argue a lot of things. So Georgia clearly is number 1 in my opinion. Easy, no brainer. Putting Bama at number 2. Very, very. And look, Bama's going to be competitive, but if you don't think they're going to take a step back, that's crazy to me. It's almost like you're putting them there because of the brand. And look, they've had a lot of changes. I know they kept a pretty majority of their class. I think the board is going to come in and do some great things. But Texas is only going upwards. You know what I mean? They haven't had any bumps. They're just going to continue to grow. So for me, it's like, how do you not put Texas up there? Texas, in my opinion, is a clear-cut 2 in the power rankings for the SEC. You could argue the fact that they are transferred into the SEC, which could cause a little bit of a bump. So I'm all ears for that. Again, I think it's really close in this. He kind of put Bama at number 2 as it was clear-cut number 2. I don't believe they're clear-cut number 2. I just don't see it. Ole Miss at number 3. You've got 2 back-to-back 10-plus winning seasons. You have your quarterback coming back who's going to have his 3rd year under his belt, which I think is absolutely huge. You were the most dominant team in the transfer portal, landing every top position you could player in their position that you could think of, and they were already right there, very competitive. They couldn't get over the hump, which was Nick Saban. That hump is no longer in front of them anymore. How do you don't have that team higher? They had Ole Miss behind Oklahoma. That is blasphemy to me. Blasphemy. They had Ole Miss that low. I was shocked. Let me pull his list back up so we can take a look at it. Ole Miss at 6 behind LSU, Texas, Bama. I just think that's too low. And look, I'm the first to shit on Ole Miss. I'll give Lane Kiffin crap about choking, but choking the big game and being all the way down. I think that's they've got a foundation. They've got a foundation, and I just think they're higher. Then of course, Bama at 4. There's still a lot of talent. Obviously, the board knows what he's doing. He's going to come in, I think, completely flunder it. But I saw a comment saying 8-4. I think that's a healthy pick. 8-4, 9-3, which, look, 8-4, I think that's going to put them right in that 4 spot, right? It's going to put them in that 4 spot. I see you guys saying Mizzou, no way. I mean, Mizzou finished third, I believe, second in the SEC East. I want to say third in overall in the SEC, maybe fourth. No, third, I believe, with 2 losses. They've got Brady Cook coming back. They've got a lot of their defense coming back. They did a lot of great things in the portal. They have had a hell of the recruiting class, which I know doesn't always directly correlate, but they've done some things very well. And I'm a firm believer in Eli Drinkwitz right now. I think he's doing some great things. To think that Mizzou is not better than Tennessee and Oklahoma, like, what are we doing? They had... Let me see. I'm going to answer that, Timothy, on Tennessee here. Look, hold on. Let me continue on. To have A&M, Auburn, and Oklahoma in front, and Tennessee in front of Mizzou, I was disgusted. Absolutely disgusted. They did it to him last year too. And if you look down below, it says criteria on-field production from last year. Okay, well, 10, 11, and 2 with a dominant performance in the bowl game. Talent acquisition. They did a lot of great things in the portal on top of keeping their already acquitted staff. And then program and resource stability. I mean, they've shown that Drinkwitz has been there for the last 4 years now. I think they've done some great things. So for me, Mizzou, you got to put Mizzou up there. You can't sleep on Mizzou. I can't do that. LSU, look, I think LSU, Nussmeier, I think is going to come in and do some great things. But you could move LSU lower, in my opinion. I think I ought to be frank with you. I was probably blinded by the Josh Pate list. Genuinely. And I was trying not to be biased in this. So I was trying to take into consideration his list of like, okay, what is he seeing to put LSU at 4? LSU's defense really didn't hold them, any lights. They're flipping over that defense. They're getting a new defensive coordinator. They fired the entire defensive staff. That's a lot of question marks. You're bringing a whole new staff in. That was to a production that was not there. Now they've recruited well the last few years. The defensive side was a question mark last year. They didn't perform well in the portal with defense. That was something Brian Kelly spoke about. So yes, you could argue, but look, they finished, I think, in the top 5 anyways for the SEC. So I don't mind leaving them there. I think Nussmeier is going to do some great things, but I could slide them down a little bit. I could. That is a little crazy. Mizzou proved they were better than those teams. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Tennessee is a good Pac-12 team, and I'll get to Tennessee. We're getting there. We're about to be there at number 7. This is where things get dicey. I left off. You see 9 and 10. Those are some new logos coming, by the way. A little tease there. I left 9 and 10 blank because, no joke, 9 to 16 outside of Vanderbilt, they don't count. 9 to 15, it could be anybody. And I was like, I don't feel like trying to figure out who's 9, 10, 11. Like, to me, it is margin close. He tried to separate it. It's not. And I'll go back to his list here in a minute. Tennessee, 2 back-to-back 10-win seasons. As much as we want to hate on them, us beating them is huge, but I think they've done some great things in the transfer portal. I know everyone's high on Nico. I'm not that high on Nico. I think he's going to come in and do a good job, but they could win 9 games again. And for that, you have to put them up there. Whether you want to or not, I think their schedule, right, compared to others, I think they're going to probably get 8 to 10 wins. I really do. As much as I want to hate it, I think that's something crazy. Obviously, I was a big component of them being a lightning in a bottle. Do they take a step back? I don't feel like they're going to get worse from last year. And they, 9, 10 games? 9 games, I believe. So, we'll see. I think Nico's better than Milton. Oklahoma at 8, I felt like it was a stretch. He had Oklahoma at 5, and I felt like if I dropped Oklahoma off anymore, the Sooner boys would come out and start yelling and screaming, and I didn't really feel like dealing with that here this evening. I wanted to, simmer down and not take the lashings that those guys bring. They just kind of come and start screaming in the comment section. I think they're going to take a step back. I think going into the SEC is going to be a little bit of a change to them. I think their defensive line is going to have to need some love. You're moving on from Dylan Gabriel, who's been the quarterback there from last year, and to Jackson Arnold, who I am high on, but first time in the system, there's going to be some bumps in there. So what? 7-5, 8-4, 9-3, 10-2 is going to be of a stretch for Oklahoma. But Brent Venables has been there. You lost your offensive coordinator. There's some question marks. That's kind of where I'm at. So let's go on to kind of the remaining what's left here. All right, let me hide mine, and we'll get back into this. So they have A&M at 8. They have Auburn at 9. The Auburn shit fires me up, bro. Like, I don't know what it is, and I have nothing against Auburn. Like, I like, they don't bother me a bit. Like, there isn't an Auburn fan that I've met that bothers me. Literally, A&M fans, buck wild. Like, A&M in the same. A&M being an 8 is mind blowing to me. You're gonna tell me, okay, the one class they had in 2021, I looked at it. 7 of the top 10 kids have left. Okay, so don't tell me they've had 3 good recruiting classes, because outside of that class, they've been normal. They've been in the 12, 15, etc. Okay, they've a complete overhaul of coaching. I know they're getting Elko in, who is a proven head coach, but their defense is Florida Gators defense from last year. Okay, it's a carbon copy of it, and you're putting them 6 spots ahead of Florida, 6 spots ahead of Florida, and they're a complete overhaul with a quarterback that was hurt last year that's going to come in and apparently be a top 10 quarterback in the SEC. Could be, but there's a ton of question marks, and you put them in front of Mizzou. I'm fired up, bro. I'm fired up, dude. And then Auburn. This was his thing about Auburn. This is what he said about Florida. Florida hasn't had a winning season in 3 years, last 3 years, and I completely agree with you. Have had healthy recruiting classes. He said great, I guess, resources, right? But haven't been winning football games. I totally agree with you, babe. Totally agree with you. To me, it feels like he feels that Billy isn't the guy. And if that's how you feel, I'm all in. Like, just say that. Like, hey, I don't think Billy's the reason I have him down there. Because if you're going to talk about wins and losses, Auburn has been dog shit for the last 4 years. They haven't recruited in the top 15. Or, no, excuse me. This past year, they recruited number 8. They had a hell of a recruiting class. That class is not going to impact this year. It's going to have some, but not much. So chill. Prior to that, haven't broke the top 10. Okay? Peyton Thorne, only Thorne he's providing is in his own side, because they're not doing anything. I don't care about the freeze 4. Yes, they'll have some wide receiver play. 7-5 with a cake-ass schedule. I looked at the schedule again. Their schedule, once again, is pretty cake. Also speaking to Mizzou, their schedule is cake. I don't think he took it into consideration, so I haven't mentioned it yet. But if we're going to look at that, Mizzou's not playing a damn soul. So that's where we're at with that on Auburn. But I'm hot. Shit gets me fired up. That's why for me, with A&M, Auburn, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Florida, Kentucky finished better than those schools that we just mentioned. But for some reason, they kind of fall off at the end every single year. I think Kentucky should be ahead of all those guys. I think Vandergrift's going to be better than Leary. They're going to have a little bit of attrition just with guys moving on, but I think I think Stoops has done a good job of building a culture. I believe Kentucky should be ahead of A&M and Auburn. I really do. As much as I hate to say it, I just think that they've done a good job of building a culture, and they'll be able to maintain that going into next season. But A&M, Auburn, South Carolina, and Florida, to me, it's a coin flip of who's ahead of who. And you can say that I'm being a homer. Graham Mertz is a better quarterback than every single one of those teams' quarterbacks. Shoot me. I'm not wrong there. What are we even talking about, dude? Like, if you're going to sit here and look me in the face and tell me that these cats are better, could they be better by the end of their career? Sure. But Graham Mertz is going to be coming in a system that he's established himself in, had a phenomenal year last year. I think he's going to only progress. I mean, that's what you have to expect. That's what he's going off of. He's thinking these guys are going to progress. Then you have to take those things in consideration. The one big line where I would say Florida probably is where it should be is the line. And I agree with you. Straight recruiting of the offensive line is a big question mark. So look, I'm not going to be a complete homer on that. I feel like, yeah, that's a reason to believe that they could take a step back. But other than that, I think, look, again, A&M and Auburn being above Mizzou and Kentucky is just, you're wanting something that isn't real. The obsession for these two teams, those guys, in my opinion, have been just as irrelevant as Florida has. Auburn has, for sure. A&M had they had a 9-1 year in 2020, a little bit of a splash. They had the big recruiting class, highest recruiting class of all time. So those two things kind of elevated them. So I won't put them in that category. I won't disrespect them like that. But Auburn has 100% been the same damn category. Like, shut up. Shut up. But again, their schedule, it's absolute cake. Let me see if I got to pull it up still. I was looking at it, I go, blasphemy. Alabama A&M, 1-0. California, which they were nail-biter last year, but I'll give it to them, 2-0. New Mexico, I think they lost to New Mexico State last year, so 3-0. Arkansas should be a 4-0. It's at Auburn, 4-0. Oklahoma, at Auburn, could be a toss-up. We'll call it 5-0. Georgia 5-1, Mizzou 5-2, Kentucky at Kentucky, gonna be a good game. Vanderbilt, there's 6 wins. ULM 7 wins. A&M at Auburn, coin flip. So there's 8 wins on the board. There's 8 wins that are possibly there for Auburn once again, and I don't hate that. Sorry for yelling. Carlos Pendleton, good evening, everyone. Go Gators. Shelton, the wife says hello. Well, Carlos, tell the wife I said hi. Pate loves Beamer too. Yeah, bro. You know what he said about South Carolina? You want to know what he said about South Carolina? And look, I'm not trying to shit on Josh Pate. These lists it's going to ensue madness. I just feel like have some rhyme or reason to something. You know what's funny is like I feel like if you put a good list together, nobody's gonna bat an eye. They're just like, nah, I can't really argue with it and let it fly. You got to put some craziness in there. Let me see what was I reading? I completely lost my train of thought here. Oh, Shane Beamer. He talked about South Carolina because I don't think they've went like 5-7, 7-5, and 6-7 in the last 3 years. They've recruited well for South Carolina standard, but still top 15 recruiting classes. They've done pretty healthy in the transfer portal. Nothing to knock your socks off, but just they've done higher than South Carolina. They've been exciting because Shane Beamer is there. But he goes, their schedule has been tough, and it has. 2 years ago, I said South Carolina has an option to go 9-3 or 4 or 6-7 or whatever, 5-7, and that's exactly what happened with 5-7 because their schedule is a gauntlet. But so is Florida's. And he did say 11 through 13 could be a kind of a coin flip, I think is somewhat what he said. So I don't know. And look, you're going to have your bias in these things. I understand those things. And I'm not even mad about the Florida thing. I'm not even mad about having Florida down there. It was more of the disrespect to Mizzou, Ole Miss, and the dog humping to Auburn and A&M. Like, I don't see it. I do not see it. And I haven't seen it in the last couple of years. It was the same thing when everyone's like, oh, A&M, everyone's going to want that job. The fuck they are. Why? Sorry for dropping a little bomb there, but fires me up. Fires me up. If you say so, Homer. Who's your team, Timothy Packard? Would love to know. Like, these keyboard warriors just fire me up too, bro. Like, I get if you don't like my talk, right? To come in here and just like sideswipe, right? Like, that's pussy shit, in my opinion. Like, I'm actually trying to have like a genuine conversation here, not just pump smoke. But I still have my pizzazz about me. I'm still gonna be fired up. You know what I mean? Try. Let me read your comment to see. Look, and a lot of people are sleeping on Florida, and I think they have every right to. So I think Kentucky should be over Texas A&M and Auburn. See, Big Annie. A&M will beat UF next season by 14. Larry Cox, really positivity. I love it. Florida loses to Mizzou on a prayer, loses to Arkansas on a missed field goal, loses to FSU on some stupid mistakes, and somehow they're at 13. Noel's biggest fan. Smokey Gator, upcoming season, slow boy Billy guiding this team to 4-win season. Oh, yeah. Yeah, don't tell you fans. I believe in Freeze. He's proven. And that's the big thing, too, Q. He didn't mention the head coaches, but I believe a lot of it is bought into who is, I guess, stability. But there isn't stability at A&M. You can't say that. There isn't stability at Auburn. They just got rid of all their coordinators. So, yes, Freeze is there, but more of that, there isn't much stability. Because A&M got the money, that's why everybody wants the job. Nobody wants the job, though. Nobody wanted it. They think people should want to go there. A&M hasn't done anything, ever. Yes, they have the money. They proved that. They went and got the highest recruiting class of all time. Couldn't do anything with it. I don't know. I don't see it. Pay is a scum, suck up, and kisses up to the big dumb Mario. He always hypes them up and knocks Florida while trying to pretend he's impartial. Look, it's a tough job. I'm not, we're all fans, and I think what's interesting is I think this type of what we're doing here is the fanatic of of what do we call ourselves? MCs or whatever the hell we are. Noble losers, wannabes, who talk sports now. Or more and more of these guys are starting to show their fandom versus trying to be this bias. And I think it's more healthy to show like, hey, I am a fan of this. I'm going to, have my reasons, but ultimately we all watch these games together. And it's like, when there's a clear bias, like I said, I have nothing against Auburn. For me to be this high on Mizzou, like I have no reason to be high on Mizzou. I have no reason to be high on Ole Miss. Like Lane Kiffin, those guys troll the shit out of us. Y'all see me rant on Lane Kiffin. Timothy Packer says Gators are going to surprise mini. Better defense for sure. Any OC news? No. God, I for the love of God. Bro, I wish Billy would just come out and either say, hey, we're not hiring one or we're hiring one. So we could stop with it. Like, just end it, right? Like, end this saga. I actually think we should be around 11 or 12. Mr. Nobody. You feel all right? You feeling okay, big guy? Mr. Nobody's turning over a new leaf, boys. New year, new nobody. You know what I mean? Around 11 or 12. Yeah, look, I think you could argue. I think you could argue that for sure. For sure. I think you could argue Florida could be ahead of Auburn. But if it's the schedule, I think plays a factor in that too. Honestly. I didn't say anything about how we lost last season, Larry. Why are you yelling at me? How's South Carolina ahead of us? We beat them last year and almost everyone's back. Heck, we stole one of the best young players. It's crazy to me, dude. Who is the quarterback at South Carolina? Like like Shane Beamer has produced less at South Carolina than Billy has at Florida, and he gets that, well, his schedule's been tough. Okay. And so is Billy's. And he's recruited better. Now, then it goes to, well, Florida is a higher standard but it's being held to a higher standard. Okay, but coaching's coaching. If you're going to put them in front of us on the power ranking, then you can't say, well, you're giving them a handicap. You know? Doesn't make any sense to me. Smokey Gator, hit the like button. Absolutely. Gators over everybody. I think that first list was right. Sean, it will be August 1st and Gator Nation will still be hoping for an OC. That is true. That is true. That is true. At the bare minimum, Florida needs to go 3-0. I couldn't agree more. I think 4-0, I think it should be the standard. Do we play Texas 4th? 3-0, it has to be. It's in my he loves the QB. Bro, Cody and I did a complete, when we did the wide receiver list, we were up for like 3 hours, like literally trying to break this thing, break the wide receiver room down, which while I was going back to like that list, I believe was a pretty healthy put together list because there was a lot of question marks. Nobody really knows wide receivers, but we were going in and out. Who's going to be the quarterback, who they're playing, how they produced last year, what this offense is going to do. Like, and we scoured to see what the quarterback situation at South Carolina was. A lot of question marks. A lot of question marks. I just don't see it. With our additions, we will be a lot better. We're putting them up on episode alert. It's just called being honest and giving an upset evaluation. We can't be homers all the time. Yeah, look, you guys know I'm the biggest fan ever, but I can have an actual conversation, right? Q35, over 320 people on here. We should have 320 likes. I agree. I think a lot of people watch on their TV, so it's hard for them to like, so it is what it is. I wouldn't put us over Auburn just by Billy's coaching alone. And look, I think you could make that argument too. And I think that he didn't mention it, but I honestly believe that the Billy factor, and a lot of people don't believe in Billy and have every right to do so, is what's causing Florida to be down there. If you put the same, let's say the record, the recruiting class, everything is the exact same, but you take Billy and you put Hugh Freeze or you put Lebby or you put Elko into that, they're a number 9 team. I genuinely believe that, and that's fine. Billy has burned some bridges. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. Dick and balls and all. I'm so excited to see Mertz, you and me both, Muddy. Through a 6-game stretch, he was balling. Now Gal gets another offense to work with Wilson and young guys. Mertz will be a top 5 quarterback SEC next year. If you guys saw the lists, I put him in my top 5. I couldn't agree more. I really think I really believe that. I think he buys into the system. He bought into Billy's system. And I think that's also why Billy probably taking his time with this OC search, if that is happening, to make sure, like, hey, like we weren't far off. Like, I don't need a complete revamp of the offense. These guys seem to figure it out. So we'll see. How the heck an AMM 8? That's what I'm saying, boys. Texas walking into the SEC at 3. I have them at 2, Mohawk. But it is what it is, man. I mean, they're crushing it. They have dominated in recruiting for the last 3 years. They've dominated the transfer portal, which in my opinion, I think is going to have more of an impact. They've got stability. They're bringing back a lot of guys. I mean, they're a threat. You have the team that finished 3rd, lost to Washington, who went to the championship, just getting better. Like, It doesn't. That's a no brainer to me. I'm surprised that I have him over to Alabama. Second year merch is gonna be like Burrow. I like that. Just wins games, and this list means nothing. And look, and that's the thing about lists. They're easy to throw away, but we're in January, so that's why the lists come into play, because it's like it gives us a reason to bicker. I get it. I get it. Well, boys, I love you. I appreciate you guys, as always, tuning in on this wonderful Monday afternoon. Of course, we'll be live on Wednesday. We're doing the ad libs. A lot of you guys are commenting on that. Stay tuned. We got a lot of things coming out. Wednesday, we should have our new website live. We're dropping some new merch, which I'm really excited about. Been working on that. The Oregon channel, I'm not sure if you guys care, is growing like a weed. The Georgia channel is doing well. So it's really exciting stuff here at High Top. The family is growing. We're really cranking it down. High Top Sports Recruiting. Cody's been crushing it. So it's been fun. It's been a blast. We've been like really working on trying to expand everything. Quick thing. We're going to work on writing more blogs. If there's anybody that wants to be a blog writer for High Top Sports, I mean, it's not going to just be like, hey, yeah, cool, come on. If you have some work, please email us at hightopsports2@gmail.com. I want to become more just involved with the community, and I think writing is a great way of doing that when we can't always drop a video. Being able to express your thoughts and opinions of what's happening, regardless of what it is. I think in each sports will be good. So if you guys want to be part of that, shoot me an email at hightopsports Gmail and just put subject line blog writer. So I think that's all I had for you. I can't think of anything else. But I love you guys. See you Wednesday. Smash the like button, subscribe. Till next time.